Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how I taught Sami to walk on a leash when he was a puppy. Walking on a leash is one of the first things you should be teaching your new puppy, and it's never too early to start. I know how overwhelming it can be, especially if you're a first-time dog owner like me, so I'm going to do my best to walk you through everything I learned when I started training Sami, including how to hold the leash, how to get your puppy started, and how to set them up for success so that they continue to walk by your side in any environment. What you're going to need is a leash, a collar or a harness, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, and plenty of treats. Or you can just use your puppy's meal. Optional item here, I suggest you get a treat pouch because it will make it much easier to dispense those treats. You're also going to need a lot of patience and consistency. Let's get right into it. First of all, you're going to need a collar or harness. You can use either one. I'm going to tell you what I did with Sami when he was a puppy. So I started Sami with a harness, and then once we started going to dog training school, I switched to a collar for training sessions. This was suggested by our dog trainer, who explained to me that puppies are used to being grabbed by the back of the neck by their mom. It's how she corrects their behavior. So they are more likely to respond to gentle tugs on the leash when wearing a collar than when they're wearing a harness, which makes sense. And I noticed that with Sami as well. He pulled less when wearing a collar than when he was wearing his harness. However, the collar can be a bad idea in some cases. You have to make sure that you never ever yank the leash or drag them by it, because this can cause serious damage to their throats and even cause tracheal collapse. I hope I'm pronouncing this right, which is something that Sami's vet warned me about. She said that she's had many dogs come in with collapsed tracheas because they were wearing collars and pulling too hard on it. It's the reason why I decided to only use the collar for training sessions when I was in full control, and I made sure that puppy Sami didn't pull on his leash too much. On regular walks, when Sami was likely to break into zoomies mode, which he did a lot, I would switch to a harness to avoid any injury on his neck. So my advice would be to have your puppy wear both a harness and a collar. Use the collar for leash training only, and if you feel like your puppy is having a bad day and it's pulling too hard and you can't get them to back off, then switch to the harness. Or if you feel like using a harness would be safer, then absolutely just do that. Whatever works for you is fine, and your puppy's leash training is not going to rely on them wearing a harness or a collar. So choose whichever one you feel more comfortable with. Okay, next you're gonna need a leash. Any leash will do as long as it's a short one and not a retractable one, okay? This is important. With retractable leashes, you have no control over your dog and the leash is always tense, which you're gonna see in a moment. It's the opposite of what you want. You can totally use a retractable leash later on when your dog knows how to walk on leash and you can decide to give them more freedom. But for now, stick to a short, normal leash. For a small puppy like the Westie, I recommend a thin one like the one I have here. It's light and easier to work with compared to thicker, heavier leashes that you can use when your dog is all grown up. This one is a waterproof leash that I got from Z-Dog, and I've had it for about 3 years. I like it because it's easy to hold in my hand, it doesn't slip, and it's the perfect length. But you know, any regular leash will work just as well, so don't worry about it too much. Now, start by getting your puppy used to wearing the collar or harness at home with the leash attached. For puppies that have never done this before, it can be a really weird feeling having something tied around their body like that. So help them get used to the sensation by having them wear the leash around the house. You can just let them drag it around and distract them with toys to take their mind off the leash and to avoid them getting any ideas to chew on it, because we don't want that. Once your puppy is used to being leashed, it's time for some training. Don't go outside just yet. Start indoors, because it's a familiar environment, there are less distractions, and your puppy can focus better. Attach the leash and start by walking slowly and lure them with a treat to walk with you. At first, you might want to bend your knees like this and get down to their level to keep their attention on the treat. You don't need to say anything at all. It's actually better if you don't talk because then your puppy can just focus on the treat. After the first few steps, stop and reward your puppy for doing such a good job. When you give them the treat, make sure to use an excited voice like "good boy" or "good girl." This is positive reinforcement, and your puppy learns to associate this action with the good feeling they got from it. Do this again, and this time walk a few extra steps. If your puppy gets distracted in the process, this is normal, but it could also be a sign that you're waiting too long to reward. So use the treat to lure them right back and make sure to reward faster this time. In the beginning, you want to reward often because puppies have a short attention span and you can only keep their attention for a few seconds at a time. So you want to reward them before they lose interest. The goal is to teach your puppy that walking near you is a great choice and it's way more interesting than pulling away to explore something else. After a few successful tries like that, stop the training session while they're winning, so to speak, and play with them for a few minutes as a reward. You want to keep sessions around 1 or 2 minutes, no need to go any longer than that. You don't want to overtrain. Just keep it fun and light and make sure they succeed by keeping it simple. I want to mention here that training sessions like this, it's best to do them on an empty stomach. The puppy, not you, okay? You can eat whenever you want. Your puppy, however, will be more motivated before mealtime than after, when their bellies are full. That makes sense, right? So you can save breakfast or dinner until after training, or you can just use their actual meal as a reward during training, and that's actually a great use of their meal. Use a treat pouch to hold the treats or the kibble. The one I'm using now, I got it on Amazon. It's made of silicone, it's easy to attach to clothes, easy to wash. I'm gonna link it in the description below. There are a million treat pouches out there that you can choose from, so whichever one you're gonna pick is gonna work just as well. Now, once you've reached the stage where your puppy got the idea and is walking by your side, you no longer need to bend down with the treat, so you can stand up and walk normally. Now, the next thing is you want them to look up and check in with you as often as possible. Again, no need to talk, just walk with them and wait until they look up, then immediately reward and praise. The more your puppy looks up at you, the better this is going. This is so important and you always want to reward this because eventually you want your dog to depend on you on walks, not the other way around. This goes especially for Westie Terriers who are so independent and stubborn. Their nature is to go off on their own, pull on the leash in every direction and go wherever their nose tells them to. If you allow them to lead, they're always going to want to do that, and every walk will be tiring both for you and for them. So you want to teach them from an early age to check in with you as often as possible and follow your lead on walks. If you have a Westie, you're probably rolling your eyes right about now, thinking how on earth could you get a Westie to not want to be the boss on your walks? And the answer is with a lot of patience and consistency. And a few tips that I'm going to share next on how to hold and handle the leash, so keep on watching. But before we get into that, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you click on that like button below and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Once your puppy learned how to walk on leash without pulling, and once they're looking up at you every now and then to check in, it's time to go outside. Start in a quiet area if you can, ideally somewhere where there aren't too many cars, people, or other dogs. The fewer distractions, the better. Again, you're trying to set your puppy up for success here. If you see them distracted and overwhelmed, don't be afraid to go back to step 1. Bend down to their level again and lure them with the treat. And keep that up until they get more comfortable with walking outdoors. Remember, this is a new environment for them, so even if they learned walking on leash at home and they're absolutely acing it, they still need to learn how to do it outside. And this goes for every time you change their environment and add different distractions than the ones they're used to. For example, if your puppy is used to walking in nature, you'll have to retrain them and get back to basics when you take them for a walk in the big city, and vice versa. By the way, this is not just puppies, this goes for adult dogs as well. Sami is now 4 years old and he's very comfortable walking by my side in more quiet environments. But every time we travel to a crowded city, I need to dedicate some extra time to retrain him for that environment. So even if he is well trained, he still needs some extra practice to get him comfortable with the new noises around us and walking among big crowds of people, because this is just not what his walks look like normally. So keep that in mind when training your puppy. Again, reward them really often and keep sessions short, allowing breaks in between for them to explore and have some fun and do their business. One important thing that I learned early on when Sami was a puppy is how you hold the leash matters. Don't put the loop around your wrist like this. This is what most of us tend to do, but this is not good because you have no control over your dog. Instead, hold the leash with one hand like this, and then use your other hand to keep your puppy from pulling forward. Get your puppy used to walking on one side. In our case, Sami always walks on my left side. This is because cars drive on the right side of the road where we live, so it makes sense that I walk my dog to the left. So I use my right hand to hold the leash and my left hand to keep him from pulling forward and for giving him treats. Never ever use the leash to drag your dog around or pull them too hard. In fact, the mark of good leash walking is when there's no tension in the leash. The leash should always be loose and relaxed, like this. Then think about using the leash for giving your puppy feedback. So when you're on a walk, the leash is the one thing that connects you and your puppy. So you can use that to communicate with them. Like when your puppy gets distracted and pulls away from you, gently tug on the leash twice, like this. It's like a tap on the shoulder and it gets their attention, making them focus back on you and the yummy treat that you're holding. The goal here is not to yank or pull on the leash in any way, remember, loose leash. But just to gently remind them that, hey, I'm still here and I have a treat for you. So let's keep on walking. So you want to use the leash to give them feedback, not to force them to walk with you. Once your puppy is comfortable walking on leash outdoors, you can give them an extra fun challenge by practicing turns with them. Start by walking in a straight line, then turn left or turn right. Then do a U-turn. Since this is all new for your puppy, make sure to reward them plenty, especially if they manage to follow you while keeping the leash loose. Once you've mastered that, congratulations! You taught your puppy how to walk on leash. That deserves a celebration because it wasn't easy. Now you can gradually increase the time between giving them treats and eventually fade out the treats altogether, replacing them with pets and verbal praise. The long-term objective we have here is to get your dog to walk by your side at your pace and not pull in every direction. And they shouldn't have to rely on treats for that. The last thing I want to tell you before we end this video is be patient with yourself. This takes time and it's an ongoing process. It took me months to get Sami to walk properly on leash, and there were a lot of bad days. I've had days when I was doing everything right and Sami was still not looking up at me or being motivated by treats at all. And that's okay. Puppies can be very stubborn and difficult sometimes, so the important thing is to stay consistent and keep on practicing. Squeeze a few minutes of leash training on every walk you take with your puppy. At some point, it all comes together and all the training pays off, I promise you that. All the time and energy I invested in Sami's training allows me to now be able to take him with me everywhere I go. On long trips in all kinds of places, indoors and outdoors. He's super well behaved and leash training was a big part of that. Let me know if you enjoyed watching. Sami and I had a blast making this video for you. Leave me a comment below and tell me about your puppy. What's the biggest challenge you're having with them right now? I want to make more training videos here in the future, so anything you want to share with me or just ask me, just leave me a comment below and I'll get right back to you. Thanks so much for watching, and if you want to see more from Sami and me, go watch this video next.